man, New Hampshire happened. Bernie won New Hampshire, but is Bernie really ahead? Well, here's what's happening. CNN breaks it down. Let's check out this video.
At Ring, we've reinvented
of course they did.
Security with
should have seen it coming.
It's the simplest,
should have seen it. I'm going to talk to this. This is Orwellian. This is Orwellian. This is so the police can constantly watch you. That's what this is for. This should not be legal. Ring. There have been people inside the organization of Amazon who have blown the whistle on Ring. They've blown the whistle on Ring. You should never buy this in a million years. Do not buy this. Never buy this. Don't buy this. It's Orwellian. All right.
The headline right now, of course, Bernie Sanders wins the vote in the New Hampshire Democratic presidential primary. He's got the popular vote. He wins the popular vote. He's also going to win the delegate count.
Well, he certainly wins the primary. There's no doubt about that. There were 24 delegates at stake tonight in New Hampshire, but it's a draw.
Really?
With Pete Buttigieg. Sanders gets 9 delegates. Buttigieg gets 9. Klobuchar gets 6. And Wolf, this is...
I like how they just casually bring up the fact that we don't really have democracy at all. They're just like, well, but let's keep in mind we have this completely bullshit system so that the person who actually won, we can just thwart the will of the people. All right, let's go on.
This is why it's so important to remember. Democrats award their delegates on a proportional basis. So you need 15% at least statewide, 15% in a congressional district, and then you win some delegates. But a close race like this doesn't give you a delegate advantage because it is split up proportionally. That's why you see Sanders winning 9 tonight, Buttigieg winning 9 tonight, because they were so close, and then Klobuchar getting the other 6. Let's take a look at the delegates to date. Include Iowa in there now that we've been through 2 contests. Remember, up there in the corner, you see you need 1,000.
Imagine explaining this to somebody. Like, imagine just somebody having to pitch this. Be like, hey, we're going to have this election. Here's the system we're going to use. Okay, let's hear about your system. All right, so it's proportional. So everybody votes, but then these things called delegates are awarded, and they're awarded proportionally. So it's not just based on how many votes a candidate gets. Really? That sounds kind of complicated, and that sounds kind of like maybe not democratic. Well, no, it's actually the most fair way to do it because, see, in some states, you might win the most votes, like maybe the most people caucus for you, but you'll actually lose in the delegate count. And then in another state, you might also win the popular vote again, but then you might tie in the delegate count. That sounds like the opposite of the will of the people. Why would you ever do that? Well, because it's proportional that way. How is it more proportional than one person, one vote? Well, gee, I didn't think of it like that. Well, because people in rural areas, like there's less of them. So kind of like the things that they need, might not be, that they might get repressed more because there aren't as many of them in a rural area, but, they still have different needs in their communities. Okay, so, I mean, I get your point there, but don't people in rural areas also have different points of view and different political persuasions? Do you think everybody in the same rural area has the exact same idea on what you need and how they're going to vote? They all vote the exact same way? Well, no, I mean, they vote different ways, just like everybody else. So if it's just one person, one vote, then it's kind of the will of the majority. And some people in that rural area will be happy and some won't, just like every other area in the country. I mean, I guess so. I kind of feel like one person, one vote's the way to go. I don't know. You're neglecting the farmer. Have you ever taken a step back to realize how condescending and like borderline insulting to people in rural areas that actually is? You know what I mean? Like they're just like, well, that's the cliche people throw out. Like, well, without proportional delegates and without the electoral college and stuff like that, the will of the farmers would just be completely thwarted and they wouldn't have a say in anything. Like, okay, so everybody in a rural area, everybody who engages in farming, they all vote the exact same way for president. They all have the same point of view. And they all just get in line and go Republican because they're looking out for us. You don't think that farmers are human beings who engage in the world, who form their own opinions, who watch the news, who read books, and then make political decisions accordingly. And based on, what their principles are or how their point of view is framed or how they see the world around them, that might lead them to a certain candidate over another candidate. There are plenty of reasons why a farmer would want to vote for Bernie Sanders. There are plenty of reasons why a farmer might lean a little more towards the right, why they might feel like that's better for, for their work and their agriculture. I personally would agree with the Bernie Sanders one more, but you know what I mean? Like my point is, it's like, it's mildly insulting to just be, well, rural America doesn't get a say if we don't have the Electoral College. Really? So everybody in rural America votes the exact same way. Everybody in a red state votes the exact same way. And similarly, everyone on the coast votes the exact same way. Well, people will be disenfranchised. They won't get out and vote. We already have that. Less than half the country votes already. Well, if we don't have the Electoral College, politicians won't campaign everywhere. We already have that. They don't campaign everywhere. You don't think they spend more time in the swing states that they really need to win because of our bogus system? That's already happening. Ask Wisconsin about Hillary Clinton if you don't think that's already happening. By the way, a swing state, though, Wisconsin. That's already happening. And really, even if that was the case, let's say that was the case. Oh, if you get rid of the Electoral College, politicians wouldn't campaign anywhere. Why does that really matter all that much anyway in our digital age? Do you really want to keep an archaic system that's in place, that was put in place to please landowners back in the day so they could retain all of their power? You really want to keep that ridiculous system in place for the sole purpose that maybe, just maybe, a candidate will come to your town and you might get to ask them a question? Does that seem worth it to you? Look, take it from me. In the past 3 years of my life, I have met more people in office and people running for office than I ever have in the rest of my life combined. 90% of the time when I meet someone who's in office, I think less of them. I don't enjoy meeting them. And I would never want to vote for them in a million years because I meet them and I'm like, you're a very underwhelming person. You have no point of view. And it's a bummer meeting you. It's a bummer meeting you because most people in office, they're corrupt and they just play the game. A lot of them are just blank suits because being a blank suit is rewarded in our politics. Being just a blank, empty vessel is rewarded. You can have a career that way and a lucrative one. If you're a Bernie Sanders, you're in the minority as far as being an elected official because you chose the hard road. Dennis Kucinich chose the hard road. Bernie Sanders chose the hard road. Tulsi Gabbard chose the hard road. Nina Turner chose the hard road. AOC, hard road. You get the idea. They're the exception. People like that exist in electoral politics despite the system, not because of it. So why do you really want to have all these people come into your town when most of them are just going to be walking sacks of shit anyway? Who cares? We need to get rid of this system. We need to get rid of the Electoral College. Let's keep watching this video where they try to justify this dumb system, where they explain how ridiculous this system is.
991 delegates to win the nomination. This is the beginning of a long road to that Democratic convention in Milwaukee. Take a look at where we are. Buttigieg actually has a 2-delegate lead at 23. Sanders, 21.
Buttigieg is winning. Pete Buttigieg is winning. Here's what I had to say about that. I had something to say about that, and I want to share it with y'all because I think it really puts a period on all this. Election 2020, a guy who lost the popular vote in both states and at general events is getting booed off stage. We showed that video yesterday. Pete Buttigieg is getting booed off stage. That's why I'm calling him Pete Booed off stage. A guy who lost the popular vote in both states and at general events is getting booed off stage is technically ahead because our democracy is great and the envy of the world. I wonder why half the country doesn't vote. Wonder how Donald Trump became president. Pete Buttigieg, technically ahead. Booed off stage is technically ahead. The guy who the other night at a general event got booed off the stage with chants of Wall Street Pete. The guy who lost the popular vote by thousands. The guy who is over 10,000 votes ahead. Bernie Sanders, over 10,000 votes ahead so far. And he's technically not winning the election. He's not winning. Who's winning? The guy who's getting booed off stage, who has 10,000 less votes, and who did not win the popular vote in either state because of this bogus proportional representation. Bernie needs, I mean, look, we have to be so loud. If you want Bernie Sanders to get the nomination, which I do, we have to be so loud they can't ignore it. We have to be so loud they can't cheat, that the margins are that big that Bernie wins. And whether Bernie wins or not, you know what's going to happen? Look, no matter what happens in November, it's yellow vest time. If Bernie wins, I'm going to celebrate for a night. For 2 nights, actually. I'm going to celebrate November right afterwards. And then I'm going to celebrate, when he gets sworn in January. So that's the difference. If Bernie wins, we get 2 days of celebration, then we put on the yellow vest. If Bernie doesn't win, you put on the yellow vest immediately. Because, even if Bernie wins, he will only be as effective as a president as the movement is behind him. Because he's already going up against the Democratic establishment, the DNC, the media. Reuters ran a headline where they talked about who was in second and third place. They didn't even mention who was in first. So he's up against all that stuff now. If he's president, he'll still be up against all that stuff. He will only be as effective as a president as the movement is behind him, just like FDR was. It's the same thing. So if Bernie wins and we all just go to sleep and go back to brunch because we're like, hey, we won, everything's fine, he's not going to have a very effective presidency. Unlike Barack Obama, he's at least going to want to do the right thing. He's going to want to do some good things. But there will be too much opposition. He'll be facing opposition from the Senate and the House. Ron, the House is controlled by Democrats. He'll still be facing opposition there. He sure as hell will. Because there's only a handful of actual progressives in that House. So it's just an amazing note to take. The person who is in the lead right now in our election, in our so-called democracy, is the person who has been booed off stage recently at events. By who? The people. And the person who is over 10,000 votes behind somebody else. That's our system.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your